Hey, if we haven't met before, my name is Brian. I'm one of the pastors here on staff, and we have been in a conversation the last number of weeks all about connection and the importance of connection. And in this series, in this conversation, we've been talking about how there's three particular things that are needed, necessary for connection to not just happen, but to also deepen, right? Those three things are to be seen, heard, and valued. That if you want to connect with somebody, you need to be seen, you need to be heard, and you need to be valued. But not just that, but you also need to reciprocate, right? You need to see, hear, and value the other as well. And you and I were created for connection. Connection with God, connection with each other, and even connection with ourselves, right? That's like part of the greatest commandment that Jesus gives us, right? To love God and to love your neighbor as yourself, right? To build this connection that is founded on love. The last couple of weeks, we've been focused in on what does it mean to connect to yourself, though, right? If we're supposed to love our neighbor as ourselves, how do we love ourselves? Like, what does that even mean? And so a couple of weeks ago, Pastor Sharon talked about how we hear ourselves. Right? When you hear that inner dialogue, or how do you see yourself, right? When you see yourself, what do you see? And what labels do you carry that have maybe been given to you? Pastor Brendan talked last week on how you hear yourself. What is your self-talk? Right? When you hear that voice, what do you hear? What do you say about yourself? What is your self-talk? And today I want to focus on a thing that is particularly meaningful for me. And it's how you value yourself. Probably like me, there's been seasons of my life where I didn't see much value in me. Right? And there's other times where my value was so dependent on so many other things. That influenced how I see myself. So I want to talk today about how do we value ourselves? If we're going to love ourselves, we want to connect. How do you appropriately value yourself? Right? What is your value? And so let's start with just like the basic question: how do you determine something's or someone's value? Right? And value, I mean, like just kind of cutting through all of it, like the value is determined on what somebody would give for that thing. Right? So for example, if I had just like a regular old baseball, what would the value of that brand new regular old baseball be? Right? Well, if you go to a Target or a sports store, probably anywhere between like $4 and $7 is the value of a baseball. But if I had a baseball that was signed and autographed by Babe Ruth, what's the value of that baseball? Right? At auction, that would go at about $10,000. So why are those two things valued differently, right? And at the end of the day, it's what somebody would give for those things. So value, it changes based on how unique the thing is, right? Value can be determined on the status that it gives you, right? When people see that you have that thing, do they look more favorably at you, right? How is value determined? What's the quality of that item, right? What is it in good condition or is it in condition? And how does it connect you to other things, right? The value of a memory, right, is going to Disney World and creating that memory. Is it valuable enough to pay that amount of money to make that memory, right? So what kind of connection will it give you? The nostalgia that it brings, maybe. Right? Value can be determined on so many things, but at the end of the day, value is based on what you would be willing to give for that thing. Which then brings us to our question: what is your value? Now, we've been talking through these last couple of weeks about how we need to see ourselves the way that God sees us. We need to hear ourselves the way that God speaks, like what he speaks over us. And now the same is true here. We need to value ourselves the way that God values us. So how does God value you? Right? Well, let's look to the scriptures. What has he said about you? In 1 Corinthians 6:20, it says, God bought you with a high price. God bought you with a high price, okay? So like, how valuable are you? You're not some cheap dollar store throwaway item, right? Like, God bought you with a high price. That the God of the universe was willing to pay a high price for you, okay? And then in Ephesians 1:7, it says he purchased our freedom with the blood of his son and forgave our sins. What was God willing to give for you? Himself. Everything. Like, that's what is true about you. That if we're going to talk about how does God value you, how valuable are you from God, that you are worth Jesus dying for. That's how valuable you are. That's what God has declared to be true about you, right? That's your value. And what does it look like to find your value in that declaration, right? To look at yourself and go, this is someone, I have unsurpassable value. There's nothing that could be added to me to make me more valuable. That's the kind of value that I hold. That's the value that God has declared to be true about me. But the question we got to ask is, when you look in the mirror, is that what you see? Is that the value that you ascribe to yourself? And the probably appropriate follow-up question is, why not? That when we see ourselves, why don't we value ourselves like that? And oftentimes, why don't we value other people like that? See, so much of how we see God, how we see others, it's also determined by how much we actually value ourselves. That if we don't think that we're very valuable or worth much, we're not going to treat others as very valuable. Or if we think that we're more valuable than someone else, well, then we treat people that way, right? We treat ourselves that way. But when we can see that, listen, this person right here is someone worth Jesus dying for. And man, if I'm someone worth Jesus dying for, I bet they are too. Now, here's the deal. For me, on my journey, I've heard that hundreds and thousands of times, right? That Jesus died for my sins, that Jesus died for me, that he loved me so deeply, that he values me so deeply. I'd heard that so many times. And I could spend all morning talking about that, and I'd love to do that. But instead, what I want to do is I want to show you the alternative of what it would maybe look like to not find your value there, but to look elsewhere. Because for me, until I had that revelation of what it means to find my value in all these other things, I didn't get it. I couldn't see the difference and what it would actually mean for me to make the daily choice of seeing myself, of finding value in myself the way that God valued me, as seeing someone who had unsurpassable value, as someone worth Jesus dying for. So what I want to do today is I want to show you the alternative. I want to show you what most of us settle for. Even if you're a follower of Jesus, this is how most people tend to live, right? You've heard of like jumping on the bandwagon, right? You've heard that saying before, jumping on the bandwagon. What I want to talk about today is what I'm going to call bandwagon value. Bandwagon value. That this is finding your value or tying your value, right, to things that are changing, to things that are just trendy in the moment. Right, in what maybe people say or what people think or, what seems to be kind of acceptable in the moment. Like, what happens when you have bandwagon value, right? When you're just finding value in just whatever happens to be trendy in the moment. Because for me, this is what changed everything for me. And so what I want to do is I actually want to look at a particular scripture, a place in the Bible, in the book of Acts. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Acts, Acts is a book in the Bible that comes right after Jesus had died and resurrected from the dead. So Jesus resurrects from the dead, and he sends the first followers out into the world. So these are the first Christians that are going out in the world. They're planting churches. They're telling people about the good news of Jesus, right? That people have unsurpassable worth and value, that they're worth Jesus dying for. And when you can come to live in that reality, everything changes, right? That's what this book is all about. And there's a particular character in the book of Acts, a guy named Saul, who has this life-changing encounter with Jesus. It changes his name to Paul, and he becomes kind of like the staple character throughout the last half of the book of Acts. And it follows him around to all these different places where he's telling people about Jesus, people who'd never heard about Jesus, people who had other faiths and other beliefs, but began following Jesus because it really was good news that the God of the universe valued them like that. And that's where we pick up the story, is this character Paul, he's been going around, he's been telling people about Jesus. These churches are starting to plant, and this news, this swell of people hearing about what Jesus has done, what it means to put your faith in Jesus is growing. And we pick up this story in Acts chapter 19. We're going to start in verse 23, and what you're going to see is a group of people who have taken on bandwagon value. People who've put their value in just what happens to be trending in the moment. And I want to show you what happens when that's the way that we choose to live, when we tend to find our value not in the unchanging reality that we are loved and valued by God, someone worth Jesus dying for, but when we find our value in the things that we do, in the way we interact with people, and in what people say about us. I want to show you what happens. So here we are in Acts chapter 19. It says, about that time, serious trouble developed in Ephesus concerning the way. The way is what they called like this movement of Jesus in the world, right? This Christian movement concerning the way. It began with Demetrius. So this trouble developed, right? And it began with Demetrius. He was a silversmith who had a large business manufacturing silver shrines to the Greek goddess Artemis. So here's Demetrius, right? He's hearing about this news of Jesus going all throughout the area, right? And for him, the first thing that it does, right, this guy who has bandwagon value, the first thing that this does is it creates concern. Right? He's concerned, right? There's change happening, that people are starting to believe something different than what he believes, right? That he's feeling threatened. I get all my value from this stuff that I do, from this thing that I do, these idols that I create. And this news of something new is happening. And he gets concerned. He's troubled by it, right? Because that's what we do when the things that we value start getting threatened. Right? We get concerned. What this change that's coming, is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? What's going to happen to me? What are people going to think? So he begins to get concerned. So Demetrius, he's a silversmith, and he grabs all of his coworkers, right? He owns this business. He gets all of his employees with him, and he reaches out to others who kind of have similar trades, and he's going to rally the troops. And this is what happens next. It says right, Demetrius, he called them together along with others employed in similar trades. And he addressed them as follows. He says, gentlemen, you know that our wealth comes from this business. Our wealth, right? You can start to get a glimpse into what he values, what gives him his value. You know that we get our wealth comes from this business. But as you've seen and heard, this man Paul has persuaded many people that handmade gods aren't really gods at all. And he's done this not only here in Ephesus, but throughout the entire province. Of course, I'm not just talking about the loss of public respect for our business. You're starting to get a glimpse of what he values, what gives him value. I'm also concerned that this temple of the great goddess Artemis will lose its influence, and that Artemis, this magnificent goddess, worshipped throughout the province of Asia and all around the world, will be robbed of her great prestige, because I don't know if my God will stand against this Jesus thing. He's threatened, right? So first he has this concern, right? This change is coming. This stuff is happening. I feel threatened. I'm concerned. And then what does he do? He just creates some drama. He rallies the troops. He gathers everyone around him, right? Do you have people in your life who create drama? Right? That whenever there's concern happening, right, they get concerned about something, what do? Right? They sound the alarms, they raise the red flags, and then they tell other people about the news, but they always have this way of spinning it so that you see it from their side of things, right? You should be concerned too. You should see this the way that I see this, right? Right? The world is going to hell in a handbasket. Oh no! That their concern grows to conspiracy. Now, followers of Jesus, I'm going to be very just blunt here. Christians, when it comes to conspiracies, we are among the worst offenders. That's a hard truth. That's a hard pill to swallow. But it's real. Because we chase our value in other things. And I'll speak for myself here. You know, when it comes to being concerned about things and then you just kind of create drama, you try to get people to understand things the way that you do, right? To create conspiracy. What I've come to discover about myself is that when I start to see other people as the enemy, right? Those people are just evil. They have evil motives. That's why they're doing this. I'm probably dabbling in the realm of conspiracy, right? When those people, like, man, they don't even know what they're doing. Right? You ever hear something, and then like 10 minutes later, you're talking about it like you're the expert on the subject? Yeah, I'm probably dabbling in the realm of conspiracy there. But the one thing in particular that really helped me understand where I was trying to find my value was bandwagon value. It will always cause you to be for some people and against others. It will always pit you to be an enemy of someone. And what I've come to discover is that as long as I am against a person or a group of people, I will never be able to love those people. And what I had to come to realize is that those people were worth Jesus dying for too. You see, when we find our value just on the things that change, the things that can look different over time, instead of on the unchanging reality that we are loved by God, that we have unsurpassable value, nothing can add to it and nothing can take away from it. We choose to have bandwagon value. We chase these things and we make enemies out of people. That concern grows to conspiracy. And here's what happens next. It says, at this, their anger boiled, which of course it did, right? Right? We're all concerned. This thing is happening. Everybody should panic, right? Their anger boiled and they began shouting, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians!" And soon the whole city was filled with confusion. You ever feel confused about the world? Right? Because concern will eventually grow into conspiracy. And when you hear enough of it, it'll eventually grow into confusion. That we don't even know where our feet should land. Anyone like sports? Any sports fans? Yeah, okay. I like sports too. I'm gonna pull this out. I am a huge sports fan. I love watching sports. I love going to sporting events. Like one of my favorite places to go to. I was just talking about this with Brendan the other day. Is I love going to Twins games. Anyone like baseball games? Yeah, baseball games. I love going to the Twins game. It is so much fun. I love, even if you're like out in the outfield, if you're like in the nosebleeds, it's still fun. Not necessarily because the game is great all the time, but because like it's the Minnesota Twins, right? When you go, there's the experience of the atmosphere in the room. Now that we have like the open stadium, it's not just the Metrodome. You can like see the city, the skyline. Oh, it's so much fun. It's so much fun. And then you can cheer for the Twins, which is always, but Minnesota sports, ooh, let's be honest, right? I mean, Minnesota, they're not the best. We haven't been to a World Series in over 30 years. Like, oh gosh, like we're not great. In fact, even wearing this is kind of uncomfortable. Like the Twins. Maybe we shouldn't talk about the Twins because they're not great. It's football season. Can we just talk football? Let's talk football. All right. How about we talk football? I mean, let's talk about the classics, right? Jerry Rice, Steve Young. Come on, where am I? Yeah, this is it. This is what I'm talking about, right? I mean, these were some of the all-time football greats, right? I mean, these guys set records. These guys were incredible. I mean, these two guys in particular changed the game of football. But I mean, these guys are kind of old news, aren't they? I mean, let's be honest, right? If they played in the game today, I mean, they'd be lucky to be backups. I mean, they were good for their times, right? But now, like, but can I say that? Is that okay? I mean, you can't talk badly about Jerry. I mean, Steve Young was. I mean, come on, let's go. But Jerry Rice, can you say that about him? No? Yes? Ugh. Okay. How about we just stick to our good, tried and true Minnesota Vikings? Okay. Let's talk Vikings. We got our jerseys. We already talked about this. Chris Carter, old news. Again, he wouldn't stand a chance now. He'd be nothing. So you know what? I still love my Minnesota Vikings, though. The Vikings are awesome. They're my absolute favorite. I can rock I know this is Teddy Bridgewater. He was pretty terrible. But you know what? It's Vikings. We're going to wear it anyways, okay? But shoot, can I wear this? I mean, you know what Teddy Bridgewater did, don't you? He was one of the guys that took a knee during the national anthem. Oh, can I wear that? I mean, what will people think of me if I wear this? I mean, they're going to think that I hate my country, right? I can't wear it. You know what? Actually, maybe I should wear this because you know what? I have some friends that helped me understand what that was all about. That was an important movement, right? Like they were standing up for something like the injustice that was going on in the world, in our country. Like, yeah, I should absolutely. But you know what? Shoot, what will my family think? Oh no. Like they could have had a different way to express that, right? You don't have to kneel during, we shouldn't talk about this, should we? I mean, this is, oh gosh. Okay, let's go somewhere like, okay, how about we just talk about like recent news, like good things that were happening on in the world, right? We just got done with an election. That was exciting, wasn't it? Yeah. Wasn't that fun? Election season. I mean, hearing who got like all the absurd amount of text messages, right? Yeah. How did they even get your number? That's crazy, right? But hey, we got to work really hard to make sure to convince people to vote for my candidate, right? I mean, we're gonna, whatever it takes. Let's talk really, really poorly about the other guy, right? About the other gal, because they're the enemy, right? They're the evil one. They're just trying to ruin the country, aren't they? I mean, that candidate, come on, trash, garbage. In fact, who's so excited that your candidate won? Oh my gosh, isn't it exciting that we won? The United States is finally going to be, let's make America great again. It's finally going to go, but. I mean, you know how they won, right? I mean, they cheated. They absolutely cheated, didn't they? I mean, they stuffed the ballot boxes. They got, we've heard all about the stuff in Russia, right? You know that happened, right? Are you kidding me? Don't be an idiot. Like, that didn't happen. Come on, right? In fact, well, their policies, right? Like, it's kind of messed up. What are you talking about? Finally, we've got some Christian values that we're going to hold on to. Those are Christian values? Are you kidding me? Really? Okay, this is getting too political. This is too much, isn't it? I mean, we really shouldn't be talking about these kinds of things. Let's put those away. I mean, we can't. Okay, what else do we got here? Sure, Matt. How did you get into this thing? We're not even talking about you. Get out of here. We can't go there. No. Okay, can we just take a breather here, because the world isn't so bad. It's not. It's actually, it'll be just fine, right? The world will be just fine. I mean, some people are kind of evil. We know about that. I mean, like the whole election season, like the biggest deal was Roe versus Wade, right? Oh man. I mean, thank God that got overturned, right? Wow, that was what a good, huge victory for this country, wasn't it? Well, I don't know, was it? Ooh, I mean, I know people who actually have really had to suffer because of that. I mean, they had to cross state lines now. But come on, that's evil, though. They shouldn't be doing that anyways, right? I mean, you can't be standing up for that kind of thing. I mean, but did you even listen to their story? I mean, what are you doing about it? Are you invested in what's happening with adoption? That doesn't matter. I mean, can we even talk about this now? I mean, what will my family think if I support her? What my family think about if I stand with that family? Oh gosh, what are they going to think? What are my friends going to think if I stand with them? I mean, they're probably going to think that I'm one of those liberals, right? I'm just one of those conservatives. Oh, I don't want to be labeled like that. I don't know if I should stand. I don't. You know what? Maybe we shouldn't go there, because you know why all these problems are happening in our world right now, right? You know why this is going on. It's the school systems. The school system is ridiculous. Unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, we hear about all the things. I mean, Common Core math. Get out of here with your Common Core math, right? Like all the different steps you got to take. But listen, it's not just about the steps, because the steps are great, but we know, like, the data shows that long term, like, this is the way that you educate people. Like, kids are going to grow, they're going to become healthier, they're going to be strong. But it's not just that. I mean, come on, let's be honest, right? Those liberals, they're taking over our school systems. I mean, are you kidding me? They're getting rid of the Bibles in our public schools? You can't do that, right? I mean, well, I don't know, maybe that's okay. I mean, can we talk about religion in schools? Is that all right? Well, no, you can't do that. How dare you do that? You know what I heard? I heard that they're not letting Christians even pray in the schools anymore. Right? That's what they're saying now. You can't even do that. That's not okay. But you know what? They're letting other religions pray in school, but not Christians. I mean, how dare they? We should take to the streets. Right? This is ridiculous. I cannot believe that they're doing that. And you see, what I've come to learn is that I have to pick a side here, right? I've got to be over here. I got to be on team Steve Young again. How did he get back in this whole thing? But here's the deal: is that when we have bandwagon value, when we find our value in the things that whatever the world says, what I've come to learn is that if I can make you angry, if I can trigger you enough, if I can cause enough confusion, ask enough questions, then eventually I can get you to forget that you have unsurpassable value. That you are called to be a minister to this world. That you are called to be somebody who would point at any person who has any opinion and say, you too were worth Jesus dying for. But now instead of grieving the hurt and pain that the world can cause, we pit people against each other, right? We make enemies out of people. Instead of showing a world desperately in need of knowing their value, that they are someone worth Jesus dying for. We make other people pick sides. And if I don't pick a side, well, then I'm going to lose my value too, because now I'm hated by both sides. Concern becomes conspiracy, which grows into confusion. And here's where this ends. It says inside, so this big thing is going on. People are shouting and screaming, and inside, the people were all shouting, some one thing and some another. And everything was in confusion. In fact, most of them didn't even know why they were there. Concern becomes conspiracy, which grows into confusion, and eventually develops into just conformity. Just doing and thinking and saying what everyone else does, the way the world thinks, completely forgetting that every human being on this planet was loved by Jesus. That Jesus didn't just come to die for my opinions and my thoughts and the things that I like. But he came because when he sees every person, no matter where they stand, no matter what they believe, that that's someone worth him dying for. That when Jesus looks at them, that's what he sees. You see, when you anchor your value to things that just change as quickly as the crowd does, you will never live from a settled place. You will always be restricted to love based on who agrees with you and who doesn't. Now, if you've been following along in your Bible, though, if you got your Bible out, you got your Bible app out, you may have noticed that I skipped over a good chunk of the story. You know what I skipped over? I skipped over everything that was Paul's side of the story. And Paul was this guy who had what I'm going to call anchored faith. Anchored faith, or anchored value. An anchored value is when you anchor your value into what is unchanging. The reality that you are someone worth Jesus dying for. That you have unsurpassable value. That nothing can take away from it and nothing could add to it. That Paul lived from that space. And it was from that space, I want to show you how Paul was able to walk through this type of debacle, this type of craziness, this type of riot. I want to show you what anchored value can do. So let's look back. Let's rewind the story just a little bit more and see what it looks like for Paul, someone who's put his value on the unchangeable declaration that he was someone worth Jesus dying for. So let's go back. So we're going to go back. The Gaius Demetrius had already rallied the troops. He'd done his big rah-rah speech, right? He created all this concern, and everybody was rushing into the amphitheater. And this is how it picks up. And I want you to pay attention to Paul. It says, everyone rushed to the amphitheater, dragging along Gaius and Aristarchus. These are two guys who followed Jesus, right? So these guys were Paul's traveling companions from Macedonia. So Paul wanted to go in, too. He wanted to go into the mob. He wanted to go into this amphitheater where all this stuff was going down, right? But the believers wouldn't let him go, which makes sense, right? You can't let your leader run into a riot. That's not going to end well. But it wasn't just the believers who wouldn't let him go, who didn't want him to go. It says some of the officials of the province, friends of Paul, also sent a message to him, begging him not to risk his life by entering the amphitheater. Now, it makes sense that Paul, like these believers, right, didn't want Paul to go in, right? They wanted to protect their leader. Like, that makes sense. These are guys that are going to rally around him. But what about these officials? Who are these guys? The officials, if you were to look back, do some history, the officials, I mean, anybody watch the movie Gladiator? Yeah, Gladiator, yeah. These officials, these were the guys that would put together the Roman games, right? These games that would be to honor the Roman gods. Okay, so in order to appease the gods, in order to entertain the gods, what did you do? You had people fighting against one another, right, to the death. Who could kill the other? You'd have people fight lions. Is so-and-so stronger than a lion? And all of this was to appease the gods, right, to appease the Roman gods, to entertain the Roman gods, because we want them to be on our side. And these officials are the ones that would organize these public games. But Paul, he had every reason to hate these guys. I mean, he could have made a list a mile long of all the ways that he disagreed with them, about how what they did was actually kind of messed up, right? He could have made a list of a mile long of why these people are his enemies, but instead, what does it tell us about the officials? They were Paul's friends. Soak that in for a second. You see, Paul wasn't there to make enemies. Paul was there to show people who were loved by Jesus. He was there to show them that they were, in fact, loved by Jesus. That's why he was there. He wasn't there to make enemies. He wasn't there to hold tight onto his things that he really liked or didn't like or what. He was there to simply invite people to get to know this Jesus that loved them so deeply. Even these people who would put together the Roman games, that they were Paul's friends. That Paul didn't create walls between him and even people of other beliefs, other faiths. But he could live from a place that was anchored into the reality that he was someone worth Jesus dying for, and he knew his past. And he knew that, man, if Jesus would die for me, if that's the value that God puts on him, it's got to be the value he'd put on them too. That's the place that he lived from. Watch how this develops. It's not just what Paul said, it's not just what Paul did, but look at what people say about him as well. It says, at last, the mayor was able to quiet them down enough to speak. He says, you've brought these men here, but they have stolen nothing from the temple, and they have not spoken against our goddess. Isn't it fascinating that Paul, the guy who had his life so transformed by Jesus, who planted so many churches, who helped so many people of other faiths, of other beliefs come to believe in this Jesus, isn't it fascinating that he never belittled, never demeaned, never even spoke against their God? See, he wasn't there to make enemies. He wasn't there to pick fights. He wasn't there to show all the ways that he disagreed with them. He was simply there to bring invitation. Said, listen, I know my value. I know what I'm worth. And I know what you're worth. You're worth Jesus dying for. So let's start there. Let's begin from there. Let that be where my words and my thoughts and my actions can come from. That Paul knew his value. He had anchored his value on what God had said to be true about him. But the question is, will you? Will I? You see, choosing to live with our anchored value, with value anchored into what God has declared to be true about you, seeing yourself that way, that's not a destination where all of a sudden, I've arrived and I live this way now. It's a daily choice that we have to make. It is a lifelong journey of daily choosing to stand in the place of going, I know what I've done, I know the great things that I can do, and I know the awful things that I can do. And at the end of the day, Jesus looks at me and goes, that's someone worth dying for. Will you live from there? today, that's the invitation. Is whatever you might be anchoring your value to right now that isn't Jesus, it's okay. It's okay to stand for things. It's okay to have strong opinions. It's okay. But would you have open hands? Enough to say, those are all great, but I don't need to die on those hills because I have someone who already died for me. And I'll stand there. I can live from there. I'll find my value there. Today, would that be the choice that you and I can make? I want to pray over us. Lord, I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful that my value doesn't come by what I do or what I produce or how many friends I have or what people say about me. But Jesus, my value comes completely from what you've already said to be true about me, what you've already done on my behalf. God, that when I look in the mirror, I can say that is someone who has unsurpassable value. Not because of what I think about me, but Jesus, because it's what you think about me. That's what you think about each of us. Out of the depth of love, you look at each of us and say, what would I give for them? Everything. Jesus, today would we ground our value there? Would we put our value there? Would we find all of our life from there? Jesus, we love you. If there's anything particular that you want to speak to us today, Jesus, we say we're listening. Would you speak to us? And Lord, as you do, would you help us to respond in the way that you need us to respond? Jesus, we thank you for all of who you are. In your name, amen.